My name is Anna Ochoa. I am formerly known as Anna Fuerst. And I'm over at my grandma's house, Grandma Fuerst. And we're going to ask her some interesting questions to see her point of view on life. And this is a picture of her when she was a kid with her mom, who's Italian.
Who are the three kids there?
That's her brother and her sister she doesn't like.
What were their names? Raymond and Teresa, I think? Yep. Which one's Grandma? I think it's the one on the right there. Let's see.
She was the oldest, but it's hard to tell who was there, but there are the pictures.
Yay.
So, I'm just going to talk with her grandma. And then someday you guys will see her.
What's the date today?
September 22nd.
2001.
We just got bombed.
Well, not just.
But practically.
We're going to get a perspective on a different generation and what they think of the past and how it relates to the future. One more thing.
One more thing. This is where our dad, Jackie, or John, but we call him Dad, grew up. And I think they moved in here when he must have been
2. We can get the facts from Grandma.
I don't know, but she'll tell us all. But she, this is where they grew up for half of their life at least. And it's an old house and it's a small house and a lot of kids.
Look at the details. This is the kitchen.
Oh, but you said that you don't want them to know what your number is. Oh, you got the block.
Hey.
Well, do that so they don't get your number.
What's your name?
Agnes?
Agnes. How do you know Grandma?
Find out. Call there and find out if they answer the phone.
How do you know her?
That they don't.
How do I know her?
They haven't got a blocker.
Oh, a
Yeah,
long time
doing
ago.
more
We
than
used to
once.
work together at
Wait,
the
the
hotel.
SOB's up.
What year was it?
All right. Bye.
Do you remember what year you started working together?
What year did we start working together, Mildred?
The 60s, 1960. Oh no! Before that, you worked at the Salvation. What is it there?
Her Anna. We'll have
The
Grandma.
remember you worked in a place where they served dinners downtown. What was it? The American Legion or something?
Yeah, something. Yeah,
And
there
I,
was an
yeah, and I
American
met
Legion.
you, and you said you were going to go to the St. Paul Hotel to work. So
Yeah.
I went over there, and I got hired right away.
Yeah.
Then you went over there.
Yeah, and the Lowry hired.
Yeah.
We worked
Then we
together.
went to the Lowry. We were working at both places. The
Then we
St.
worked
Paul
at the
Hotel
prom.
and the Lowry. Then we worked at the prom.
Mhm.
Then, after we left the St. Paul Hotel, we went over to the Hilton. It was a Hilton then.
Yeah, right. It changed.
Yeah, and then from the Hilton, they changed it to the Radisson.
Radisson. Yeah.
Then I
And
worked
then
I worked on banquets and carousel, and you worked on the banquets.
Mhm.
Then my sister screwed me up with her stealing there, and so I quit. But
The carousel was upstairs.
she
at
finally
Circle.
got fired.
Oh, Town Square.
She got fired there for
So-
stealing.
So Grandma,
What?
what was your name before you got married?
You know what my maiden name is.
Other people won't though.
Who's other people?
Whoever watched this in 20 years.
Oh, you ask your father. He'll tell you.
Well, you can tell me too.
Ginta, what was it? Ganta?
No.
We want to know about you.
Ginta. Guinta.
And you know we're Italian.
Yeah, Grandma, tell us of your
Oh
heritage.
no, I'm Norwegian.
You like
Yeah.
she's Norwegian.
Norwegian and Swede.
What is your back? What country are you from?
From Sweden.
She's from Sweden.
Sweden. What else?
Norway.
You don't look like you're from Sweden.
Norway. Norwegian. I'm Norwegian and Sweden and Danish.
Don't look it.
And we're really happy
A
because
lot of people don't look
I
at
think you're
we got a lot
lying.
of Italian blood, and Angie married an Italian.
So, Grandma, tell me of the country. What is it? Do you remember the city that your ancestors were from?
Where are they from?
Mm-hmm. And
I don't know.
aren't you from Sicily? I thought. Wasn't there Sicily in there somewhere?
I told you Sweden.
I know. You're gonna confuse everybody. They're gonna all grow up thinking they're Swedish now.
Well, ask a silly question, get a silly answer.
What are you talking about? Silly. I'm just
Well,
asking
that
you
is
where you're
silly.
from.
That's silly. Where are you from?
Where I'm from the Twin Cities. You are too, but I'm German, Italian, and Irish, and Norwegian. So what are you?
English and Italian.
Are you English?
Yeah, well, way back. Way back.
Really?
Yeah. Way back. Well, Carol showed the papers to your dad about the ancestors.
Cool. I didn't know
And
that.
according to the Italian paper, we're supposed to be Spanish, French, and also Greek, and a little bit of Arab.
Uh-oh. We're all gonna be deported now.
That's what the Sicilians consist of. But before my great grandfather went to Sicily, he was a count in England. From a count, he was made ambassador to Spain, and from Spain he went to Sicily. That's I'd say in about the 1700s.
Wow. When did your parents come to America?
Oh, the turn of the century.
Did they go through New York?
Yes.
Yay. Ellis Island, huh?
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Mhm.
Did they take a train to Minnesota?
That I don't know. I wasn't there. I wasn't
Did
born yet.
they never told you why they came to Minnesota?
Well, they did. Grandpa came here 3 times, back and forth, and he wanted to find a place where he could make money. Because my grandmother died when my mother was a baby. And he was left with 5 kids. But her aunt took care of the kids when they came over. Grandpa came here. And he was a businessman. He came to Minnesota because Minnesota was a place where they were building up industry and jobs.
What kind of work did he do?
Well, he had a grocery store when he came here. He was a businessman. But he went to Florida. He went to Louisiana. I remember my mother said he went all around the United States to find out where he wanted to settle for work and for money. And Minnesota was building up. St. Paul was building up at the time. And there was a lot of industry going on and a lot of work jobs. So he settled here. That's why he settled here.
Where was his grocery store?
Huh?
Where was the grocery
It
store?
was on 7th and Lafayette.
Cool. I didn't know that.
Right across from the Savoy Inn.
Oh, really?
Right in the corner there, yeah. And they tore it down, and they made it. They sold tires there. They had other businesses came in and took it. And my Uncle Sam, my mother's oldest brother, was willed everything, and he was supposed to divide it between my mother and her sister. And one of the sisters stayed in Sicily. She was a nun. She stayed in the convent, never came here. But my Uncle Jim came here, and he went to school here. He went to Mechanic Arts High School. He graduated there, and then he went to the university in Chicago, the Northwestern University in Chicago, and he graduated from there, my mother's youngest brother. And the older brother, that worked in the store after Grandpa died. He took over, and he was an interpreter for all the Italians that came to Minnesota from Italy.
That's cool.
And he set them up for housing, because they couldn't speak English.
That was very helpful.
Yeah.
Wow.
And
that's
he
so cool.
he was an interpreter, and he became a businessman. He went to college, and he studied banking.
Mm-hmm.
And also sold real estate. So he's the one that sold the store then. He was in charge.
Mm-hmm.
So he took my mother, her sister, the 2 sisters, out of some of the inheritance from the store. So one sister got into a fight with him, wouldn't talk to him no more. So she went to Pittsburgh, and they opened up a pop factory there. They had money. They were very rich. Her husband ran the pop factory, and they had 8 kids. One of the boys went to college, he went into service, went to college, and he became a scientist. He worked on the Salk vaccine, which was a polio vaccine,
Wow.
and that was in the 40s. He won the service and he came out and he went under a GI Bill of Rights. He had 11 degrees and he became a professor at the University of Pittsburgh.
Wow.
He never got married. He died last summer and he was in his 80s.
This is your
Was
cousin,
retired.
right?
My cousin. That was the sister that left here, St. Paul, and went to Pittsburgh with her husband. And they had 8 children. And she had one of her daughters, the oldest one, because my aunt died, she didn't want to get an operation for appendix. She had her appendix broke, and she died. She was only 48 years old and left 8 kids. So the oldest daughter raised the kids. So she sent them all, they all went to college.
Wow.
And they were all smart, every one of them.
Good.
And that one kid became a scientist. And the other one, the daughters worked in Washington D.C. They never got married. They were single. She was an old maid. The one was an old maid. The other one was the one that became the scientist. And one of them was the oldest one. She took care of the younger ones with the 8 children. And your dad met her. My cousin Nanette. She's dead now. And their name was Nanette Blair. Bler. That was their last name. And so anyway, then she had 3 daughters of her own. And the 3 daughters, 2 of them got scholarships for college. They went to college. Because she was a widow when she had 3 daughters. And she took care of her brothers and sisters. So she raised all those kids. And then my Uncle Jim became a minister. And he had his churches in Europe. That was my mother's youngest brother.
He went back to Europe?
He went back to Europe,
was
and
a
that's where
missionary.
I went to see him in 1973. I went to see him when I went to Italy.
You handed it?
And he was a minister.
Look over here.
And you're not listening.
I am listening.
Oh.
I'm listening. Hang on.
And became
Now
a
go.
minister because
I'm listening. I'm just setting this up.
Oh, well, pay attention. I don't want anything ruined.
Okay. So
then,
he's a Europe
then Uncle
in
Jim-
Europe.
Yeah, he went back to Europe and then he opened up churches in Italy. They weren't Catholic though. They were Seventh-day Adventist.
Oh, Seventh-day Adventist?
Yeah, and
really?
his wife was a school teacher, but she could never have any children. They never had any kids. But then they settled in northern Italy, which is on the border of Switzerland and Italy. Beautiful place. I was there in 1973. I went to visit him. But he lived to be 98 years old. Passed away. And my Uncle Sam opened a bank, Produce Exchange Bank, in 1930, and that was right by the old city market. It's still there, still standing there, and the bank. And so 3 of his kids went to college. The oldest girl, they only had 1 daughter. She was the first woman lawyer in Minnesota. The first woman lawyer. And she passed away in 1996. Then she had her 2 brothers. She went to St. Kate's. From St. Kate's, she went to St. Paul College of Law. Her 2 brothers went to St. Thomas, and one went to the University of Minnesota after graduated from St. Thomas. But he joined the sport playing football, and he hurt his leg. So my aunt made him quit. She didn't want him to play sports anymore. So he worked in the bank, and the other brother worked in the bank.
Wow.
And the other brother got married to a girl that was just a secretary, and my aunt got mad because she thought the woman wasn't good enough for him because she didn't have money. She was from up north, and so my aunt got mad, and she wouldn't talk to him for years. She wanted him to marry somebody that was Italian and somebody that had money. And this girl didn't have money because she came from a farm up north. And so,
2 bad things.
yeah. Well, my aunt was strict. And the other 2 didn't get married. My cousin Millie didn't get married, and her brother Joey didn't get married.
So out of the 8, 2 didn't get
Out
married.
of the 3. That's the oldest boy. That was the oldest boy. The one that had the bank. That was her older brother. She had two brothers.
Oh, okay.
The one in Chicago the one that went back to Italy. He was the youngest brother. He was next to my mother.
How many siblings were there altogether?
8.
That was my mother's sister had.
Yeah, the mother's. I'm trying to follow it.
But my mother's family, there was 5.
There's 5 altogether.
Her mother died when she was 32 years old. She was only a baby. So she grew up without a mother.
Who did?
My mother. Her mother died when my grandmother.
So your grandmother died when she was only 32.
32 years old.
What cause of death?
Pneumonia. She had pneumonia.
And so she had 5 kids.
5 kids.
And so the oldest sister raised you guys. Is that what you
No,
said?
her aunt took care of them, and then her father took her to America, and the 5 kids. When he came here alone, her aunt over there took care of the kids until he came here.
That's right. Okay, that's what we were trying to follow.
Yeah.
So
when you don't listen and you fool around.
Oh, no, I was confused when I was paying attention.
Then you can't say this way. You can look at me and then you can ask me the question.
Oh yeah, no, to see
if I said right.
I was confused before too. I just didn't say anything.
Yeah. So anyway, that's the story of my mother's life.
Okay. So to recap, there were 5 children.
5 children.
Your grandmother died when she was 32
years old.
Italy.
In Sicily.
In Sicily.
Not here. And
Sicily.
her maiden name was Vaccaro. There is a tennis player. She was a champion, and her last name was Vaccaro. And you know where she was from? Spain.
Really?
The same last name as my grandmother's.
Okay. And so your father came here. Your grandfather came here.
Came here
to find work.
Yeah, and he opened up the grocery store.
And then he sent for the children.
Yeah. He went to get them, and he brought them over here.
And your mother was what sibling?
She was 15 then. My mother was 15 years old. She was 9 when she came here, and she went to school. She learned English. She could read and write English.
How many siblings were above her? What number was she?
She was the baby.
She was the youngest of all the children.
Yeah, and out of the 5.
Out of the 5, she was the youngest.
There was.
What are their names?
The first ones, they had Bible names. Listen to this. The first one, her oldest one, was named Samuel. The second was Josephine, Joseph. The third one was Pauline, Paul. Mm-hmm. You know that Bible name. And the last one, no, wait a minute. And then there was Josephine, James, her uncle. That was her youngest brother. He was James. And the first one was Samuel. He was the oldest.
And your mother's name?
My mother's name was Mary.
Mary. Okay.
Now, what does that sound like?
Huh?
The Bible names.
The Bible.
Yeah?
Yeah.
So Grandpa must have been really
Now, how old was your mom when she married your dad?
15.
They were married when they were 15?
15 years old. She had my brother when she was 16.
16 years old?
Mm-hmm.
And they lived in the Twin Cities here?
Yeah.
They did?
He knew her from...
What did they do
He knew her from across when he was in...
what did your parents do for money? How did they work?
Well, he was a fruit peddler. When they first came here, that's what they were. They sold fruit and vegetables. That was their main job. Because there was no factory work. Yeah, when they first came in the first century. Mm-hmm. Right turn of the century, I would say.
Do you remember?
About 1906.
So how old was your mom and dad when you were born? Are you the youngest or the middle?
I was the youngest.
You were the youngest.
Well, then my mother married after 9 years.
Right.
My stepfather. But when my mother was 16 when she had my brother. 2 years later, she had my sister. So that would make her 18.
And then she was 20?
And 2 years later, I was born in 1916.
1916,
2 years later.
when she was 20.
And I was a baby.
And then what happened to your father? What did he die?
He died.
How did he die?
Well, pneumonia, flu during the war.
He died during the First World War?
Yeah, it was a flu. He had the flu. Died.
Okay.
And then the second... Then my mother got married 9 years later.
She got
when
married
I was 9 years old.
When you were 9 years old?
Yeah, and then she had my half sister.
Did your mom have to work at a certain job?
She went to work. She was a dressmaker.
She was a dressmaker?
And I still remember the name of the shop. It was La Pearl Company, dress company. And she had to have the dresses fit on the form perfect. She made good money too, at that time.
Mm-hmm.
So she
And what did your stepfather?
She could sew. He worked for the city.
Work for the city?
Yeah.
And then they had other children?
Well, that like I said, that girl. After 9 years, I was 9 years old. They had my half sister,
Yeah. And
That was a girl.
that's, who is that?
Corrine.
Corrine. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Corrine. And is she still alive?
Yeah, she's
Okay.
living in Kentucky.
And, okay. And how did your brother die?
Oh, the war.
Yeah.
He was. He went to
What were their-
Los
name-
Angeles Schools of Engineering. He was a diesel engineer.
And his name was
Raymond.
Raymond. Okay. And he was in a submarine that he died, or in a ship.
He was in. They were. What happened was they were going from Cuba to South America. He was leaving Havana, Cuba, and he was on one of those oil cargoes. They were shipping oil to different countries, and he had already been in Japan, China, Canada, and he was in Cuba, Havana, Cuba, and he was going the waters there from Cuba to South America, and that's where the ship
How did it
sunk.
sink? Do you know?
Well, it was we were in war.
It was
We were
a
in
war.
Yeah,
What do you remember? What year?
that was the Atlantic Ocean, I think.
Do you
There,
remember what year that was?
it was 19. Let's see, my first one. Carol was born in 1942, and it was about 3-4 months before she was born.
Okay. Wow.
And that was.
How old was he?
Oh, I
Do you
think
remember?
he was about going into his early 30s.
Early 30s.
Yeah.
He wasn't
went to-
married or anything.
No. Oh, yeah. My cousin said he was married to a Japanese girl he met
Yes.
in Japan. But he didn't want us to know it because that was a disgrace then, because we had war with Japan. And that was a bad disgrace. But he went to Japan on one of his visits where they left off oil. He worked for Shell Oil Company. But the ship that he was on was torpedoed, and it went down, and they never found him. And that was in the Caribbean, because there must have been the Caribbean there from Havana, Cuba to South America in that body of waters. That's where the ship went down. And it was right on the front page paper. My sister had copies. She wouldn't give me copies. It was the USS Williams in 1942. But Carol said she was going to call St. Paul Dispatch and try to get a copy of it. I'm sure they probably have one there.
And then your older sister was Teresa, right? Okay. And
Raymond, Teresa, and Millie.
And then Corrine later, right?
You know what my name is supposed to be?
What?
Emilia.
Amelia.
Emilia or Emily
That's nice.
in Italian. Emiliato. It's in Italian. That's the way they pronounce it.
Was it Amelia? A.M.?
A-I-O.
Oh, no,
Emiliato or something like that. Something like that. I don't know, but it's supposed to be Emilia or Emily. Because the priest told me when I got married, your name is not Mildred. It's Emilia or Emily, he said.
No, Grandma, where did you go to high school?
I went to Cleveland Junior High on the east side. I had to go to work. When I went to work, I started when I was 14.
Working?
Working.
Where did you work when you were
I
14?
worked downtown. I used to walk from my house all the way downtown. Never took a bus. I walked. I used to go over the Lafayette Bridge and go downtown, and I was peeling chickens, taking the feathers off
You
of the
peeled
chickens.
chickens when you were 14?
14, yeah. And the more you picked, the more piecework. They were giving piecework then. By the
And
hour.
then you get paid.
And you got paid double if you did a lot of piecework. Like say, if you cleaned a lot of them, then you got more money.
Sure.
So I was working, I was doing piecework, so I made a lot of money, and that was way back before.
No, you weren't able to finish high school.
This
then.
was no. I went through the 10th grade.
10th grade.
I had to because I had to go to work,
Right, no.
and I gave all my checks home, everything home.
Right. That's so when did you
They
get,
were
when
real
did you,
strict, and I had to help them out because they were paying on the house. They had their bills, and I gave
where
all
was
my
the
money
house
home.
at?
over on the east side, over on Preble Street.
Mhm.
I still remember the number. 713 was unlucky for me.
What street?
Preble. It's between Edgerton and Payne Avenue, that street there.
That's where you lived for.
That's where I lived. And when I was in the first grade, from the first to the third, I went to Sacred Heart. And I used to walk from my house by Hamsbury all the way through, go up the steps. They had steps going up that hill. Then I'd get up on the top, and I'd go over to Hope Street, and then walk up to Arcade, and then to Sacred Heart School.
Well, that was a ways, wasn't it?
Oh, that was a long, and the freezing in the winter. I used to wear those heavy knitted stocks
Yeah.
that
Oh,
stockings
you
that
needed
came
that.
way up.
Cold.
Cold, it was freezing. Oh, and then I had the German nuns. And if you didn't mind them, they take in the closet, and they used to have the closet, and they have a wooden
Rulers or?
ruler, and they'd hit you right on the knuckles, and that hurt.
And did you have to wear uniforms
No, not at that time. We didn't.
at that time?
These were old-fashioned nuns that came from Germany, and they were strict. And my mother never stuck up for us. She'd go up to the school and she'd say, if my kids don't mind, give it to them if they don't mind, if they don't behave. She wasn't one of these mothers that would pamper you when you didn't behave.
Mm-hmm.
My kids need it, give it to them.
When
She
did
was
you?
strict?
Now, when did you get married?
1942.
1942.
No, wait a minute.
How old were you?
Carol was by 42. I got married 1941. I was the year
1941.
after I was married is when my
And now,
How old were you?
How old were you?
I think it's 24.
24.
Yeah.
And where else did you work? Did you only work at that chicken place?
Well, after I left there, I went to work at in the laundry right near my house. I only walked a block to work.
Oh, that was close.
Yeah, but I worked 9 hours a day, but I was off on Saturdays.
And that's
9
where you-
hours
Did
a
you
day.
make pretty good money for all that work?
Well,
How much was the pay?
$15-20 a week.
That's how much the people made then.
That's
Or-
what you made, and there was a lot of money.
Yeah.
That was before the war. The war broke
How much
out.
did houses cost back then?
About 6,000.
6,000. Did
$4,000,
you
$5,000, $6,000.
did you have a car?
No, I never drove then.
Never drove. And so how did you meet your husband?
Well, the girls, we used to go bowling from the laundry, all of us girls. So we went to this Stronsky's. They used to dance in there, and they had a bowling alley. So I used to go bowling with them. And then I met him in there. He was in there. So he asked me to dance, so dance with him. Then they took me home, and he knew where I live, and he kept coming over the house. And I moved out of the house because every time I met a nice guy, he'd kick him out. So I moved out of the house, and I moved in with my sister. So my sister had her little girl, so he'd go babysit
Teresa?
her daughter. Teresa. He was babysitting her daughter. That's how he got around the family. Then he was treat her nice, babysit the little girl. And then he wanted me to go steady with him. And then when I'd go out, I'd say, I'd go out thinking he wasn't there. I'd come home, he'd be there, babysitting Joni. He was just throwing himself at me. And then if it was Christmas, he'd buy me something. If it was my birthday, he'd buy me a big box of candy with roses. It was just buying his way into the house.
How long did you guys date before you got married?
Oh, I think it was about 8 months, 5 months.
How did you
And
know?
then I was married a year before Carol was born. I never got pregnant or anything. It wasn't love at first sight.
No.
It wasn't.
Mm-hmm.
And then I met a fellow that wanted me to marry him right away, but he was going to St. John's University. Dennis O'Brien. Never forget that guy.
What was his name?
Because he wanted to marry me
What
right
was his
away.
name?
Dennis O'Brien.
Dennis O'Brien.
He's Irish. And he wanted me to get married, and I said no, because this was before the war and there was depression. I said, where are you going to work? What are you going to be doing? There's no jobs. And I said, well, wait till you come out of school. We were going to St. John's College and University up in Collegeville. And so he was writing to me, and then this one comes along, just like the devil coming in,
And what was your husband's name?
Harold. Named Harold.
What was his middle name?
George.
Harold George.
Both goofy names.
And how is he? How much older than? Is he older than you?
No, the same age.
It was
We're
the
in the same year. Ain't that crazy? Same
Did you have a big wedding or a small wedding?
big one.
You had a big wedding. What church did you marry at?
St. Ambrose.
Where's that at?
Italian church. Oh, it's torn down now.
Oh.
Used to be on Payne Avenue. Payne and 7th and Payne.
Cool. You
You
had
know where Ray used to have his business on Payne Avenue there?
Mhm.
Well, right across the street used to be a little church there. A little
Oh.
Italian church.
Did you have a dance?
Yeah, everybody danced.
You had a dance.
Yeah, I had a wedding. My mother bought me a beautiful white tie. Well, she liked him. She says I was treating him mean. My mother, you're treating him mean, she said. And that man is nice to you. Maybe I must have had a hunch at that time that he wasn't going to treat me right. I don't know. Maybe it was a premonition.
And then you
Because I
moved.
didn't
Where did
want
you
to
move into? Where did you live at first?
Well, I moved when I was living with my sister because we didn't have a place right away, you know.
Oh,
And then my daughter wasn't born until a year after I got married.
yeah. And
Oh.
then you moved. Where did you live after that?
Oh, a lot of different places.
A lot of different places.
It's a sad story.
Yes, that's fine. But you ended up.
I don't even like to talk
You
about it.
ended up living here, in this house.
Well, we didn't get this house until the kid Carol was 10, and your dad was 8 when we moved here. And then Stephen was a baby.
Uh-huh.
And then while I was working here, I went to work at Gold Batteries, and I got pregnant with Terry.
So you have 6 kids,
Yeah.
and what are all their names?
What are their names?
No, what are their names?
What are their names? You
Yeah.
don't know your cousin's name?
I do, but it's just more for just like it's like a.
Yeah, but don't you know your cousin's
I
names?
do.
I think they'll know their names.
Well, if it's like a couple generations from, I didn't know all this stuff about Grandma, like all her people's names, you know.
Our kids will know our parents.
Well, it's just to have around.
What's her name? The first one?
We had Carol. You had Carol.
And who's next?
You had my dad, Jackie.
Jackie.
You had Raymond,
Raymond,
and
yeah.
then you had Patty. You had Steve and Terry.
Right.
you go.
She knows.
And
She
and where
knows.
did the kids go to school?
St. Andrews.
They walked to St. Andrews from here.
Yeah, they walked from here.
Mm-hmm.
And they graduated from St. Andrews. And from St. Andrews, your dad went to the University of Minnesota. Oh, no, he went to Cretan first.
Creighton.
And they were very strict there. You had to have the tuition. If you didn't have the tuition, then it looked pretty bad. So I used to work at the fair. I worked there the 10 days that the fair was going. I took my whole check and I gave it to your father because they had to have initiation fees when the first day they came to school. So I had that whole check that I worked at the fair. I gave it to him. And that was his initiation for the first day that he went to Cretan. And then he went up to I think it was the second year or third year. They still wanted money, an initiation fee. And so finally he said, Ma, he says, those kids are all rich. He says, we don't have any money. He says, he felt embarrassed. So then he wanted to go to Washington High School and finish. And I was really disgusted. I was so angry, because I wanted him to finish Cretan. So he finished at Washington High School. And then he went to the University of Minnesota.
Right.
And then he went there 4 years. In 4 years, and it was a struggle. It was a big struggle. 4 years he went there, and then he went to Wisconsin and got his master's, BA degree at the University of Minnesota. And he always said to me, Ma, I'm going to work on my doctor's degree and get my doctor's degree. Never did. Never did. I was so disappointed. When you have high hopes for your kids. And
Getting a master's is pretty good, though.
Well, he got his master's. He went six years to college. He went to River Falls. That's where he
He
got
did
it.
all right.
Yeah,
That's not
2
bad.
years at River Falls.
Very
But he
good.
didn't proceed with it. He isn't into it anymore.
He does it part-time at St. Charles.
Is he still doing it?
Mhm.
Oh,
Every
good.
once in a while.
That's good then.
So
That's
he
good.
does utilize it. So
And Stephen went to St. graduated. Terry and Stephen went 4 years to St. Agnes. From St. Andrews, Stephen went to St. Thomas College and graduated. Terry went 2 or 3 years to River Falls, Wisconsin. Patty went to River Falls, Wisconsin with Terry. They used to go drive back and forth every day. Raymond went to Lakewood, I think 2 years. And of course Carol, she just went to St. Andrews in Washington High School and graduated.
and she got
But
married.
then she took up nail business.
And how many grandkids do you have today? We were talking about you have
Must
19.
be 19 or 20. I don't
19
know.
grandkids,
Yeah,
and then
19 or 20. I don't know.
and
I
then-
gotta recount them.
And then possibly 9 and pretty soon here 9 great grandchildren,
Mm-hmm.
right? And just kind of kicking back in the future a little bit, you know, the events of last week with the bombings and such. You know,
She's gonna ask me about that. I
thinking,
didn't like it. I thought it was terrible.
thinking of no, but let's think back further to the other events in the last century, like to the Depression. Let's start, or the World War I. Do you guys remember World War I? How did
No.
World War I affect America?
How can I be? I was only.
How old were you? Old enough to
1960.
remember?
I was only 1 year old at that time.
Yeah,
In 19.
if I was even born.
So you don't remember it too much.
1921.
You don't remember? Yeah, you're little kids.
Yeah, I was.
What about the Depression? How did that?
World War One? That started what? 1918.
1918 or 17?
I was about 1 or 2 years old then.
What about the Depression? How did your families? How was it for you guys?
Well, we survived because everybody worked.
We were on the farm. We had food,
Yeah.
but we had to work.
Of course, I mean there were pinching with the food. We didn't get everything, but we survived, and we had to work hard.
Yeah.
I worked real hard.
Yeah. What about World War II when Pearl Harbor? People are relating the events of last week to Pearl Harbor.
It was awful.
Would you agree or disagree or?
With what?
People are saying what happened last week was a lot like Pearl Harbor.
Well, it was a sneaky attack.
Yeah.
Just
Did
like
America react
Japan
the same
was
way?
sneaky. They did it in a sneaky
You think
way,
the-
and so did they do with
Do
New
you think
York.
the people of America became more patriotic
Well, I
in
think
the
it
week
brought them
following?
down. I think it brings
Now
people.
they are, I think.
Do you think it was similar to then?
I think then it was more aggressive, you know. More.
Do you think people were more unified after that, or the same, or not any?
I think they were for a long time, and I think now we weren't getting so much, and then we're attacked again.
Yeah, yeah.
I think it brought a lot of them to their knees and
Yeah.
start turning to God because the churches have been packed
Mm-hmm.
solid, and it brought them down. People had a real nice life. We had abundance of everything. We had it nice, and I think people were getting so they had so much freedom they were taking advantage of the freedom, and a lot of them were turning to drugs, sex, pornography.
Mm-hmm.
And I think this is a wake-up call.
How old are
It's
you,
a
Grandma?
wake-up call to the nations. Well, you already know. You know. You asked me
How old
earlier.
did you think?
How old are you? How old
We
were
didn't
you
have a
last year?
we didn't have
How
a
old were
camera.
you
We didn't have a
year
camera a
before?
minute
How
ago.
old were you last month? Last week?
What did you say you were? Like 88 or something?
No, she's 67.
How old are you? 60?
You said you're 84, right?
No,
85.
I'm 60 and never been kissed.
Oh, and 16.
I've never been missed.
Well, she was born in 1916. You can figure it out.
Don't figure it out yourself.
It's
Well, anyway,
1916,
yeah,
right?
yeah. Anyway, I think this is going to bring more people to their knees in worshiping God.
We are praying more now. And
They are
stuff.
praying more. The churches are more filled up, and the Christian leaders have been praying for a revival of America, and this is what happened. To bring people to their knees. And you know, I went to church. Now this you might laugh at and you think I'm crazy.
No, we already think you're crazy.
But I went to church. No, I went to church. I went to church the next day after the bombing, and I stayed in church almost. Went to the mass, and then I went to the chapel and prayed for 2 hours for all the people in New York. And when I came out, this came to me. It says, God says, if my people don't change, I will not heal them and heal their land.
That's in
Got to change
that's in
their
Jeremiah.
ways. It came to me as I came out of the chapel praying.
Yeah.
I was in there for 2 hours. I was praying for those people in New York. Because I have people, like Johnny is from the East Coast. I have them there.
Is Johnny okay?
Yeah, their family turned out okay. But he's from Manhattan. Manhattan was where they were. And then I was thinking about my cousins in Johnstown, Pennsylvania, and that was by the Pentagon, and that was bombed over there. Where they crashed.
Up to 6,000.
And that's, 40 or 80 miles from Pittsburgh. And I got cousins in the East Coast.
Mm-hmm.
And I had cousins right in Johnstown, Pennsylvania.
Mm-hmm.
And I was thinking, oh my God, these people, it really bothered me, and I started crying.
Yeah.
It's terrible.
And
Those
then,
people went through hell. It's like going to hell.
yeah, it's really sad.
Hell and
happened.
back. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought, I got to pray for them. I got to pray for them. And we have to, too. All of you have to pray for them. Because there is still those darn old Shiite Muslims. The Shiites are the worst kind of Muslims there are. The Sunnis aren't bad. But the Shiites are the ones that are destroyed and cause trouble. Mm-hmm. Shiite Muslim. They are different than the Sunnis. The Sunnis are not troublemakers. It's the Shiites that are. And they are the troublemakers. Mm-hmm. See, there's just two kinds of Muslims, because I talked to the Muslims when they lived here. And they fight against each other. The Sunnis fight with the Shiites. They don't get along.
Mm-hmm.
And the Shiites are the ones that are causing all this problem.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yeah. So we're going to have to pray. And and we're condemning the ones that are the good ones that don't want war and trouble.
Mm-hmm.
We're condemning them as bad, making them just as bad as the other ones.
Mm-hmm.
And really, they don't, like Bush says, we can't blame all Arabs because, we have the ones that are troublemakers, which is true. I mean, just like during the war, Second World War, we condemned all Japanese.
Mm-hmm.
We condemned what was
it like for them in this country, the Japanese people?
They were disliked. The Germans were disliked too. If I told my people, people that my last name was Fuerst, they said, "Oh, you're the Führer. Are you German?" I was getting condemned because they thought, because I didn't tell them I was Italian. I just told them, they'd say, "Well, what's your last name?" Fuerst. Oh, like the Führer. That's when my kids, when we were having wars in the World War II. They condemned everybody. That was German.
Mm-hmm.
And and the Italians weren't any better because they were right in with the Germans.
Mm-hmm.
And just like our allies, we're allies, and we stick with America. We're all the French, most of the European countries do stick with America.
Mm-hmm.
And so what do? They go over there and they bomb. These Arabs bomb. These terrorists bomb over there in their country. Mm-hmm. If they have a U.S. American, where they have their the embassies, they go over there and they bomb it. They kill it. They don't care if they kill other nationalities in there. They said in the World Trade Center, they had all different nationalities from different countries working in there. Can you imagine that? Mm-hmm. People from all over the world were working in there. Mm-hmm. I was in that World Trade Center.
I was too. It's amazing.
You too.
Have you been up there?
It's a nice building.
Mm-hmm.
I had a picture taken. I'm eating a hot dog, and one of these stands where you I can't find the picture. It's
so,
gone.
Grandma,
when
did you go to Europe? Did you say you were saying that you went to Europe?
1973.
1973. And you went there. What countries did you see?
Oh, I'll tell you how I started. Where I started first. We flew over.
Who did you go with?
My sister. We flew over to Brussels. That's the first place. Brussels. We came down from Brussels. We took one of these tour buses, came down into, let's see, what was that? Holland, Amsterdam. Then we went into France, Paris. Went into France. From France, we went to, let's see, the French border. We went up into Germany, Austria, Heidelberg, the Black Forest, and we came into Switzerland. From Switzerland, we came down into Italy, Rome, Venice, let's see, Florence. Well, in the big cities, we stayed 3 days. But instead of staying in 3 days into Rome, we stayed there 1 day, and then we took a train and went up to see my aunt and uncle in the northern part of Italy, which was on the by the Alpine mountains, parts of Switzerland. We went into a little village there. The name of it was San Giovanni. Was that we went to, to get there we had to go to that where they make the Fiat's cars. That was in Torino.
Mm-hmm.
We went from Torino, and then we took the train and went up to where my uncle was, way up in northern Torino. It was about 50 miles away. And this Italian guy was driving a bus or a taxi. He didn't know where he was at. He took us, and I said, well, you better shut off that meter. I said, we're not going to
the
pay.
road.
It was 50 miles from Torino. It's a big city. Torino's a big city. It's in the northern part of Italy. So we took, and he drove and drove and drove. Oh my God! Then when he got to the town, it was a little town, beautiful place. You could see part of the Alpine mountains, there, and that's where they lived in that place. They had a little village. It's a little village, and they had a big market where they'd have all chickens, all cheese, all eggs. It was nice. We went there and see part of the mountains was in there. And no, they had a nice place. They had a nice home. It was an apartment they lived in. And so we went there, and then when we came back down, we came into Rome again because we stayed there 2 days. It was with my aunt and uncle there. And we came down and stayed into Rome. From Rome, we went to Venice. From Venice, we went to, there was a guy in Venice, he wanted to take me out. And he was a captain of a ship. But he goes, he travels from Africa to Rome, he's from Rome. And when we got into Torino, there were some guys in there, and the guy said, in Italian, he says, do we want to Viva? Viva is a drink. He didn't say what kind. I said, well, I'll drink some tea or coffee, I said. But I said, I don't want Viva, do any drinking, like wine and stuff. So he wanted our pictures. So he took my sister's picture and my picture. She stole my pictures. I haven't even got one. The guy, he wanted me to sit on his lap. He was good looking. He was from Torino, Italy. But then from there, we went to Spain, Madrid. Mm-hmm. And then we went to Barcelona. Barcelona is where Columbus walked up the steps into. It was an old part of the city, one of the oldest, and the steps are still standing there, where Columbus walked up the steps. But of course, the building's gone. That was 1492. Mm-hmm. Queen Isabella gave the ship, the Pinto and the Santa Maria, to Columbus. But Columbus was born in Italy, in Genoa. See? But the Italian government would not give him ships. And he was mad at Italy. So he left Italy and he went to Portugal. Portugal wouldn't help him. So he went to see Queen Isabella of Spain in Madrid. So she took all the prisoners out of jail, all of them, put them on the ship, and gave them to Columbus. And he had with him was a fellow that helped him off. He was a navigator, and he was from Portugal. He was Portuguese. So the two of them ran the ship, the Portuguese and Columbus. And so they sailed the Santa Maria. One sailed the Santa Maria, and then there was the Pinto. They sailed. And on the ship, the prisoners were getting nervous and excited, and because they never got to port or wherever they wanted to go. They were still traveling, in the seas, to show, he wanted to show that the world was round instead of square. Because if it was square, it would have fell off in someplace. But see, it was round, the world was round, and that's, then he finally got to all those places in the, in the South Pacific or West Indies or whatever you want to call it. He named every one of those islands Spanish names. He wouldn't name them after the Italians. He was mad at Italy. So he named them to Costa Rica, Puerto Rico, San Diego, Santa Ana, all kinds of Spanish names. And then South America was all named after Spanish names. But when he got off the ship, he got on one of those islands, they were all Indians. And the Indian women were uncivilized, they were running around naked. So these horny Spaniards, they wouldn't start raping them.
Criminals.
It was a piece.
Yeah.
They were raping them. That's why you say they don't say they're Spanish. They say Mexican, mix. That was mix. That means they were mixed with the Indians, Spanish and Indians. And when I went to Spain, I went to see Goya, who is the most famous artist in Spain. Went to the museum there, the art museum, and the woman that was the guide there, I said to her, "What do you think of Spain, the Spanish mixing with the Filipinos and the Indians?" "That's a disgrace," she said to me. "It's a disgrace. They want to mix with these other people, the Indians and the Chinese or Japanese or Chinese." She says it's a disgrace to our nation. She didn't like.
What does she think of America?
Well, I never asked her. But she said to be a Filipino was a disgrace, to be a Mexican was a disgrace, because they had these they should have stayed pure Spanish. She didn't like that. She was a guide in the museum there. But see, the Filipinos are mixed with Spanish and Oriental.
Mm-hmm.
The Mexicans are mixed with Indians and Spanish. See, and she didn't. But when they had the 100-year anniversary of Columbus, they said some of South America, the Indians were dancing. They said if it wasn't for Columbus, they wouldn't be half Spanish, because the Indians mixed with the Spanish when they hit the ground. And when Columbus landed on these, on different islands and stuff, the first thing he did was put a cross right on
the Spanish Inquisition.
Yeah, he put the cross right on.
I don't think everyone has fond memories of that.
And they brought Christianity into their.
Be it by force or by volunteer.
He brought
it was there.
He brought Christianity over there.
I'm not saying that the end result wasn't good. I'm just saying the way they went about it was probably not the best way.
Yeah, but he was a good Christian man. God was guiding him, or he wouldn't have made it.
Well, yeah, he maybe wasn't. He was probably fine. It was everyone that followed him thereafter.
But
that's because they were all prisoners.
No, the Spanish Inquisition is all the Spanish people invaded South America and Central America and took them by force rather than.
They
made everybody become Spanish.
Spain did win out though, because all those countries are all Spanish there.
It's like. The Mexicans, the history in Mexico is terrible. because of that.
Oh, there was,
like around the 1500s.
They brought the Spanish.
Inquisition was just
the Spanish.
They took them by force. They you will be Spanish or you will be nothing.
That's what they did to the Spanish people
in
Indians in Guatemala.
That's
they
what
put
I'm
them in
saying.
uniforms.
The Spanish were mean
to identify what town they were.
You will learn Spanish.
They were mean to the Indians. The Spanish were.
So I don't think everyone.
They want to capture that land. They had Spanish.
Well, the Indians had a hard time. The white men took their land and mistreated them.
I know they did. Yeah,
that's wrong.
Well, see, they feel that the first ones there, they were there before the Spanish or anybody else, and they didn't want anybody else on their land to take it.
And they're always poor, those Indians.
Yeah.
It seems they never got anything.
Mm-mm.
They are heavy drinkers, so they like to drink.
Oh yeah,
they really do.
Drinkers. Yeah, I have a president born on my birthday, and his name was Harrison, William Harrison, and when he got into office as president, he was sitting on his porch, and an Indian shot at him, and missed him. So he passed a law: no Indians can drink. And you know when the law was changed? When Roosevelt got to be president, that Indians started drinking again. before that, I don't know what's the, I think Harrison was in about the last part of the 1800s or the beginning part of 1800. He was president, and he's the one that stopped Indians from getting any liquor.
Mm-hmm.
It's when they invented opium.
Is that what they were smoking?
I don't know what it is.
No, it was opium. That
They smoke all kinds of things.
Opium came from the east.
Yeah.
To those Oriental countries.
Yeah.
They're the ones that.
What was the major nationality when you were younger? What were the major nationalities where you lived? I mean, were there primarily?
Well, we were in clans. Like all the Italians in one clan, the Swedes in another clan, the Polacks. And I can tell you, on the east side, before the Italians lived there, where I lived, there was all Swedes. Well, the Swedes, they came from Swede Hollow. They came up in the area where I was raised. Then the Italians moved in. The Swedes went up to Payne Avenue. And then when you got beyond Payne Avenue was Arcade Street. That was all Polacks. And then when you got down over by St. Agnes, that was all French. Frogtown, they called it.
Did everyone speak their own languages then?
Well, they were clannish, like I said, they were all clannish. Italians spoke Italian. The Swedes spoke their language, and you know how it was.
What was it like on the farm?
Well, yeah, we were all a little bunch by Hugo there, and Forest Lake, and White Bear. Mostly French. Mostly French, yeah.
Is that what you are, French?
Yeah.
100%?
Huh?
100% French?
All French.
Are you all French?
Yep.
Are you?
Lots of them are all French there. But
Wow.
they're old now. I'm
Do you speak
81,
French?
almost.
Did your parents speak French?
Oh, yeah, I did too from little. In fact, when we went to school, we had to start learning some of the English so we knew what
do you know any?
Huh?
Do you know any French now?
I know it all, yeah.
You speak French? So you should say something.
I can.
Say something into the camera.
Bonjour, comment ça va?
Comment ça va? That's Italian and Spanish. Comment ça va?
Comment ça va is how are you?
Yeah, that's Italian.
Bonjour is good
So
day.
is Spanish. Yeah, the same. I used to know how to count French, and I forgot. I can.
Have you been, Agnes,
Count.
did you go to France?
Huh?
Have you been to France?
She's
Once,
been in
yeah.
France.
I didn't like them there at all. They said they're from the Americans. Let's not treat them right.
They don't like us either.
But they said it in French, and they didn't know I spoke French.
She
I understood what
said.
they said. They didn't give us hardly nothing to eat. I lost 5 pounds on my trip.
And here she's French like them.
Yeah, but I didn't let them know that I was French. But I heard what they said. They didn't want to treat us Americans
Yeah.
right, And then we asked for a fruit salad. They brought us a little sauce dish with apple and a few little hard fruit, not cut up or nothing. That's not a salad. They didn't want to treat us right.
Yeah.
They never liked the French.
I used to, when I went to the German school when I was a little girl, I still know how to count German. I remember that.
Why did you go to a German school?
Huh?
Why did you go to a German school?
Well, that Sacred Heart was a German school.
It was?
We learned German too. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8,
You
9, 10.
You remember that?
Counting up to 10. Yeah.
You remember how to?
I learned that when I was the third year.
But you remember that though?
Yeah, I remembered it. And I can speak in count in Italian. I can count in Spanish. I used to know how to count in French, and I forgot. Started,
French.
maybe I know how.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26,
Yeah, I used to know how to count French, and I forgot.
After every 20th, it's 21. It's 21.
21.
That's the same thing
And then when you get to the 30,
Yeah, in Italian it's 22.
it's all the
Like
same.
if it's
you know,
21, we say
yeah.
21, 22, 23.
21.
They say it's a little bit like Italian, Spanish.
Like Spanish too.
French too, yeah.
100, it's a cent. Cent is 100.
Cent.
Cent.
Yeah.
Cien.
I think French is a beautiful language, so is Spanish.
It's got lots of words that are alike.
The same, yeah.
They spell the
My
same.
mother could understand French and Spanish when they spoke.
Mhm.
No.
I can read the French because I can sound it. You know, what's written in French sounds just like you pronounce it.
And like Italian, your counting too is
Yeah,
a little bit like it
probably.
too. So is Spanish.
So, Grandma, when did your husband pass away?
1971.
So that's when
December
you went to
19th.
Europe after that.
The what?
You went to Europe after that, then?
73.
In 73?
Yeah, he died in 73.
And what did you have to do for work after that? What were you doing when the kids were...
Well, I worked. I was still working.
What kind of jobs did you ever have? Like, you worked at the laundromat, and then what did you do after that?
What did I do?
Gould batteries, didn't you work at that?
Oh, that was way before.
Oh, okay.
I worked. Oh, you want me to go way back?
Sure.
Well, I worked at National Gould Batteries in Lexington. I worked in the St. Paul Overall Laundry there. I worked at, well, I did a lot of housework too because I was getting paid cash.
Mm-hmm.
Otherwise, I would never have taken it. I did waitress work, a lot of waitress work. I worked at the Radisson.
Is
I
that...
worked St. Paul Hotel. I worked
That's
at the
where I worked,
Lowry.
too.
Worked at the Prom
The
too.
Prom, yeah.
And
4 or 5 places.
yeah.
Where,
And let's see, where else? I worked so damn many places because he was getting drunk calling down there where I worked, and he'd say, "Fire my wife, fire my wife."
Now, how did...
He'd come down there drunk, and he embarrassed me, huh?
What did Harold do for a living?
He was an iron worker.
And he worked on big buildings?
Yeah, but he worked part-time. He wasn't a steady worker. There wasn't anything that I could depend upon all the time. And then there's times when he didn't want to go to work. It was too hot in the summer. It was too cold in the winter. So it depended upon my check all the time, what I brought home.
Mm-hmm. So you had to work all the way through?
All the time.
Through all of
Always
your
had
kids?
to. Always work. Scrape and scrape and scrape.
So you never get to stay home with the kids?
No. Mm-mm.
years ago, when I used to be younger, I went to church 30 years every day of the week. I went for 30 years, and
Wow.
I can't hardly believe that. I was 3 blocks from church. I was young and able, and I had time. I didn't work out or nothing, so.
Wow.
Another place I worked was at Montgomery Wards. I worked in the mail order.
Uh-huh.
It was hard, really hard.
Oh,
I
yeah.
started there and
We would call in an order, and would come at a certain day, go pick it up there, and then you'd pay for it.
and then when Carol was little, I just had Carol and Jack. I worked at Swift's. I used to bring their kids to a babysitter. Oh, I made a lot of money there. Oh, it really paid good.
How
I
much?
made a lot of money. I made man's wages, and
Was
I
it
made
the
man's
Swift company?
wages.
Yeah,
Huh?
the Swift company.
Yes, and they want me back. He'd come down there drunk and start all kinds of trouble. I finally quit.
Mm-hmm.
He started all kinds of trouble right on the down there. So then I worked at Gold Batteries. I worked nights. I'd be home all day with the kids when they were little. I mean, the ones that didn't go to school. And then I'd go to work, and then Carol and your dad and Raymond, they'd come home, and I'd go to work in the afternoon about 3:30, and I'd work till midnight. I'd come home, he was drunk. Every night I'd come home, he was drunk. Then he'd start fight all night. He wouldn't let me go to sleep, and I'd be so tired the next day. And I had to cook for the kids. Before I left, I had to cook, clean the house, take care of the little ones because they were little, and the two youngest ones, and then he'd call down to work when I was drunk. When is my wife coming home? He did the same thing at the Radisson when I worked with her at the Radisson, and then he was drunk. Oh, he embarrassed me all over, and then he'd say to them, "Why don't you fire my wife?" Ain't that terrible? Here I was trying to support the family.
But they could tell he was drunk, though, huh?
Oh yeah, because they'd come and tell me your husband called and he was
drunk.
They'd say
Did
your
you meet
husband
him?
is drunk.
Huh?
You met him then?
Oh,
Did you meet
No,
her?
I don't know him.
and she'd tell her how I used to go to work.
Yeah.
Oh, no, yeah.
She was crying sometimes because she felt so bad.
Yeah, he was terrible.
I picked her up as my friend, and we've been friends ever since.
Yeah.
I felt so
We
sorry
worked
for
together.
her. She had a mean husband, and she had to work, and she had the kids.
Yeah, I could never go to shows or go in. It was weekends. It was washing and ironing the clothes for the kids. You know, their uniforms.
Did you have a washing machine then?
Had one, then I didn't have one, then I had one, I didn't have one. We'd go down to Emporiums, and the kids would run. I'd say, go, Washington's birthday. They'd put their hands on the first, they'd open up and they'd put their hands on. So the first washing machine, they put your hands on. And they'd hold it for me because there was this crowd of people going there. Because it'd be a sale, Washington's birthday sale. So I'd rush in there and I said, I want this washing machine. And some of these machines, it just worked so long and then they'd go out.
Wow.
Or some of them, the wringer didn't work. It was
Yeah.
squeezing the hand by hand. Oh,
Did you have a dryer?
No, they didn't have dryers then when the kids were little.
Mm-hmm.
No, there was what.
In the summer, though, you could hang him outside if you
Well,
had
it was
line.
one of those.
What did you do in the winter?
Huh?
What did you do in the winter?
Hang
to
them
dry?
on lines. In the
Yeah, I had
in the
lines in my basement. They dried overnight, yeah.
Yeah, in the basement or in the summer, you hang
It
them
was warm
outside
in
on
the
the line.
basement.
Put your clothespins on them and hang them in the line.
You had a refrigerator though.
Oh yeah, I
yeah.
had a refrigerator.
Had a
But
good
when
freezer on top.
when I was a little girl, we had ice box.
Yeah.
I used to go with a wagon about a half a mile, and then I'd go with the wagon. They give me chunks of ice like this.
And you bring them back and put
Yeah,
them in your
On
refrigerator.
Edgerton Street, that bridge, Edgerton Street.
You buy ice to put in a box, and that's what kept your stuff cold.
It was an ice box. Ice box. It was box about like this,
Eric.
about this high, and it had a door like this. You open it up and you put your ice in there.
And you keep your food. Too,
Yeah,
if
you keep
want
your
to.
food too. And then the top, you can put ice on the top.
You could have ice.
And
Was
you
it
could get 'em-
insulated?
You could get, yeah,
Yeah,
It
it
was-
was just like a small
was
refrigerator.
good.
It was like a cooler.
25.
Well, it kept
Yeah,
things cool.
It kept the ice cool. But there were, you put a pan underneath the box,
It
and
would
there
drip.
would water would drip in there. And when
So
it
what
got-
basically is just ice is keeping what's in there cold.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
That's how it
a big
works.
chunk of ice.
I mean, it's just a big chunk of
But you
ice. That's what
Yeah.
was keeping it
You
cold.
can
Yeah,
get
with
So when it melted, that was
the
it.
refrigerator kept it kind of cool.
Angie, you could get the 25-pound, the 50-pound ice, or the 100-pound ice.
Mhm.
They were square. I used to get it with a wagon myself.
Yeah.
When I was about 10, 11 years old.
When did
Was
it
it
melt by
cold?
the time you got home?
No, it didn't. It was so big, like this. They used to cut it and make it. It was underneath this.
So it's like car camping all the time.
You know what?
Keep
You
it.
We
know-
went to the lakes in the wintertime when it was all frozen, cut it off, and made that ice and brought it in the refrigerators, and then people would buy it. You know, in the freezers.
They used to have a place, a building where they made it.
That,
cut it.
then they had
And
places to keep ice
this was,
cold.
you know, underneath
Huh?
They had places to keep ice cold back then. Like they had big areas.
because it was cold where they bring all the ice.
But if
Yeah.
it was in the
This
summer,
underneath. Do you know
Yeah,
where-
they did this in the summer.
Do you know where Edgerton Street Bridge is? Edgerton? They had underneath the bridge there was a building on one side. They had all the ice there and they cut it. 50 pounds, 25 pounds. And I used to go with the wagon and I'd get 50 pounds. And they put it in my wagon. I'd pull it up. You know, there was a road that you go up and then you take it home.
you mean you'd walk with the wagon?
Walk it with the wagon. I used to go get it. Then we put it in the ice box. So the ice box about that big. And it had a door on top and a door in the bottom. And then you pull the door open, you put your food. On the top, you would put your ice. You put it on the top, and then
It's like a
underneath,
cooler.
underneath you put your pan, and when that got full, then you had to empty it and put it back underneath. And they didn't have refrigerators.
Wow, that's interesting.
It was work.
How did you buy your meat and foods and how did you
Well, you put it in there was a room.
did you buy meat like
You put it in the ice box.
so people would go and buy meat at the meat market or
You
A
could
lot
do
of them
it.
butchered their own.
There was butchers
Yeah.
there.
most people
pork.
butchered their own?
A pig and a little pig in the fall, and you butcher it, and you get a couple 100 pounds of pork, and
Yeah,
then you have a cow, and you take
Well,
a
that was
quarter.
on the farm.
Yeah, but I mean,
Yeah.
you put your
But
beef
see,
in there.
we had butchers in the city.
Yeah,
They would cut and they cut how much you want. 1
Yeah.
pound, 2
Yeah.
pounds, they
Right.
cut it. And then if you wanted it ground in a
How often
hamburger,
did you
they'd-
eat how often did you eat meat? Was it very often?
Oh, every day we
Yeah.
had meat. At least one good meal,
Really, you did?
pork or
Of
beef.
course,
or
on
something.
Fridays.
How did you have so much meat to eat?
Well, because we had a little pork that we had butchered and put it in the refrigerator.
Oh, you keep it just cold
and
all
we
the
had a
time.
quarter of beef, so that was a couple 100 pounds, and the pork was
You had a
about
big
40.
ice box in.
Yeah, pretty big size.
Well, she was on a farm. See,
Yeah,
we had a
so
smaller
we had the
one.
meat.
And then how often did you eat meat?
Maybe about once a week. We didn't eat.
What kind of meat was it? Like beef or
beef bowl. My mother used to get a lot of beef bowl.
Mhm.
And then
You
she
can make
made
the
soup,
soup.
yeah,
Yeah,
with
that's good.
vegetables. And a lot of
And we had
we ate a
chicken,
lot of
too.
beans. Beans are good for you.
Big beans. Yeah.
And I
like
hate-
during the Depression, did you eat a lot of meat then? You did.
we had red chips. You had to buy it with chips. during the war, Second World War, because meat was rationed. Don't you remember that?
Yeah, but we had our own on the farm.
They had their
You
own.
lived on the farm. The
She had a good.
yeah, you didn't really
Good
lack
there.
for anything. In the city, we had little
And we had our own eggs and our butter and milk and cream from the, from the.
Well, you were
So way to go there, huh?
Yeah, you were lucky.
We get a couple milk chicks a month. That's where our income was. Otherwise, the farmers didn't have no income hardly.
They basically just lived off the land.
Yeah.
They didn't have to pay rent on the house or mortgage or.
No, well, we had to buy it in the first place, and then once it was paid, you lived there and you just
There's
paid
no
your
taxes?
tax.
No
Yeah,
taxes.
there is taxes, but at least you own it.
How much did they buy land for back then? Was it pretty cheap?
Oh, I don't know.
It was cheap then.
But
Maybe-
expensive then.
Maybe $15-20 an acre.
Yeah, it was cheap.
I know. Yeah, it's a lot
Now,
then, but
oh my God.
We had about 80 acres, 100 acres. But see, you had to raise your corn and your feed, to feed your cattle for the
Yeah.
winter.
Yeah,
Corn and oats and alfalfa.
sure.
So
Hmm.
they made big haystacks and then get it in the barn and fill the barn, and in the winter get the rest
I
out
think
there.
people in the farm, they live healthy lives. They got
Oh
everything.
yeah, we
They
had
have
food.
everything.
We had the food.
Yeah.
We worked hard, but we had everything. So
Yeah.
the best cheese and butter from the creamery.
Oh yeah.
you made your own cheese and butter?
No, we ordered it from there. Nice big roll of cheese, with the hole in. That was so good, that creamery cheese.
Mm.
And pounds of butter, just like we buy in the store when we got it from the creamery.
You mean you would give them your milk and then they would give you this back?
Well, no, the milkman would come and collect our milk, and we had 8-gallon and 10-gallon milk cans, with the handles. We put our milk there every morning and every night. We'd strain it after we milked the cows, and we put it in a milk tank, with water to cool it off, cold water, and kept it cool. Next day, the milkman would pick it up and bring it to the creamery in the Twin Cities here, and they had all the cheese and the butter and stuff, and then the farmers would order it through the milkman, and
So it's like trading though. You'd give them your milk and they'd give you back the cheese and butter?
yeah, and
Did you
they'd
make
get
money on
a
it
couple
then?
milk checks a month. Yeah, oh yeah, that was our living almost, just selling the milk.
Oh.
But
And you
we-
made cheese and butter too off
Yeah,
that.
they make it, over there.
But you got cheese, butter, and money from it.
Oh yeah,
Oh, that's pretty
and
good.
our milk and stuff.
There you go.
And we had our
Just off
chicken
the
and
farm.
eggs, yeah, everything, our garden
I
stuff.
don't think it works quite the same way anymore.
We canned from our garden. We could pack canned beans and stuff, string beans and beets and
She had
carrots.
some
We
good
grew.
food there.
We grew stuff. We grew our own potatoes. My dad, in the big basement of our house, in a big square, we put in about 100 or 150 bushels of potatoes. The
Wow.
people would come from the city and buy 8-10 bushels,
Oh my
and they give
God.
us the money, $1 a bushel. And they come 2-3 families together because they didn't have too many cars then and stuff.
Mhm.
And they had their potatoes, and we sold them like that. We didn't have to peddle them. We could have if we wanted to, but we didn't. They come over and get some and
Wow.
buy
But
'em.
the word picking them. Oh
Yeah.
my
Well, that
God.
wasn't too bad. That went pretty good.
Did just the kids? Did you have anybody else working on your farm?
Oh yeah, my brother. I had 2 brothers and a sister and
just-
myself.
There was only the kids working?
Well, yeah, my dad too, but he'd run the potato digger,
Yeah.
on the machine, and then the horses would pull it, and then it'd dig the potatoes on the ground, and then we'd pick them up. With a bushel basket, we'd drag it around, and we had gunny sacks, and we'd put them in, and then we'd go with the wagon and the horses and load them on the wagon, and then we'd bring them to our house, and we'd bring them down the steps into the cellar where it was cool, and we could keep them through the winter till spring, and we sold some all winter and all the fall, some potatoes, whatever we could
You
sell.
mean you didn't have anybody working on the farm besides your family?
Just our family, yeah, just
Really?
ourselves. Yeah.
What happened when when the kids were too little to work?
Outside the comment?
I mean, when you were just
I think
little.
my dad was just starting then. I don't know. I think he did it himself a little bit, not very much, but as we grew, probably put more in.
That's a
Wow.
lot of work.
That's a
on the
lot of
farm.
work.
Oh,
But
my
that's what we did. We
Wow.
did something. We had to
God.
do
Yeah, they
something.
had to do something.
Yeah.
Well,
Wow.
We used to get ready too, and before winter when I was
You
a
should
kid.
call Johnny again.
I'm gonna I gotta get changed.
Okay.
I'm really cold.
Okay.
Is it cold in here?
No, I got wet feet. I don't have any socks on.
Oh, you don't have any socks on, honey.
Oh, you need socks
And I have
on.
a
My
tank
feet
on
are
under
cold
this.
too.
Well, Grandma,
That's warm.
Yeah, it's a tank.
Yeah.
It's good for the arms.
I
My
got
arms
just
get so
this.
cold all the
I
time.
know.
well, Grandma, it was so interesting. I learned we learned a
I gotta tell you
lot.
about what we used to do in the summer.
Yeah, tell us quick.
We had to get ready for the winter. We had a coal and wood furnace.
Oh yeah.
We had
Come back.
before
Huh?
the furnace.
Welcome back.
Okay.
Before the furnace, we had a stove, a coal stove
You
in
had
the
to bring
kitchen.
in some wood in the
Yeah,
basement, huh?
in the living room, we had a coal stove. So we had to chop the wood all summer and pile it up. Take
Yeah.
it in the basement and pile it up. Put it in the furnace, and then we had to
In
put
the winter, you
sacks.
had-
Wait a minute. We used to take the coal and put it in sacks.
Talk a lot more than I do.
Well, she was asking about me.
I know, but I
give you
She
your
was
turn.
she was interjecting. She was adding to
I
her
was
story.
on the phone.
Yeah, but you had
Right
your
here.
turn.
I was on the farm.
Yeah, I know.
You guys are funny.
Oh, because I want to tell her something about
Tell her,
that.
tell her.
We canned a lot of tomatoes. We had a can of 25 bushels at a time. We used to make hot sauce, tomatoes, and put them in jars, and we had to squeeze them until it came thick out of the peeling and take the seeds and the skins out. Then my stepfather used to make boxes like this, square boxes, and they were about this thick. And all that thick stuff, we used to boil it on the stove, on a coal wood stove. And this was on Saturday and Sunday where everybody was going out. Cook it on the coal stove. And then when it got thick enough, we put it in these boxes, and he put it up on the roof. See, and then he put a screen over it. Babe, get out of there. Put it over the screen over it, and put it in the sun, and the sun would be when it was real hot sun. And we keep it in those boxes, and there'd be about 10 boxes. We put all that in there. And then at the end of the day, we would take it in the house, and the next morning, we had to put it back out there. See, the sun would bake cook the tomatoes. And then after, they didn't have tomato paste in cans at that time. So my mother, we put them in crock jars about like this. And then we put olive oil in there to keep it moist, the tomato paste. And mint leaves, she put that in there, and we'd keep it all winter in a cool place. And then when we wanted to make spaghetti or something with tomato paste in, we'd go down and get it, because there was no tomato paste in stores. Nobody sold it. And so we always made our own. And I used to take they'd have 25 to 30 bushels of tomatoes. And I used to have one bushel that I put it in after I cut them in half, washed them, lay them down, one layer, and then we'd put salt on top. Then we'd cut some more, about 2-3 layers of tomatoes, then put some more salt on. Then we'd take another layer, and we'd do it till it got up on top. We had a full bushel. Then we'd put our a heavy cover on it, like a heavy plate or something. Then we'd put a heavy weight on there and cover it. And we had the cement. The driveway was cement and then a slant. So we put those bushels there that was all cut in the bushel, and they drained all that water out overnight. See, because this was all fresh tomatoes that were in there with the salt on, so they wouldn't spoil. And then overnight, we would take and put them in great big huge pans, and we'd cook them on the stove. And then when it got so it'd be easy to sieve them through a strainer or colander, we would strain that. Oh, and my fingers used to get so sore, from squeezing and squeezing and squeezing all that thick stuff out. But it didn't have no seeds and no skins in it, and we canned them in jars. The ones that we kept that were in tomato paste. Mm-hmm. We worked hard at it. And then we used to can peaches. We used to can, all that other
pears and peaches.
Yeah, all that. Peppers, mostly peppers, hot peppers. And fried peppers, sweet ones, we can. And then she'd make eggplant with oil. Oh, is that good? Did your mother ever make that? Oh, it was delicious.
We didn't have much eggplants.
She used to take.
Thank God, right?
Why? You don't like eggplant? Oh, that's good for you.
They're all right. I never ate much, though.
Oh, I like eggplant. We used to take and slice it, and then we put it in a colander overnight and put a heavy weight on to get all the juice out. Then they put them in crock jars like this, and then they put. So, What did I talk about?
You're just talking about canning pears and peaches and.
No, we did that all summer. You did too. It was canned all summer. That's what we used to do. You think that we went to a movie or had entertainment? Heck no, never went to the lakes.
During the World War, though, I enjoyed it. There was a lot of nice movie homes, houses downtown, 5 of them.
Yeah.
We could go to any one we
I don't know
wanted.
why.
Why could you go to anyone you wanted?
Well, they had all kinds of different movies on. Now there isn't a movie house downtown.
Yeah, I know it.
Oh,
50
downtown.
Cents, 50 cents to $1 to go to a movie.
Yeah.
What?
50
They were
cents?
good.
25 cents for a movie.
What kind of movies are playing? Do you remember any
Well,
of them?
clean cut one.
Real
Movies,
nice ones, real good
cowboy
ones.
movies or movies that weren't
Very
dirty like
good,
they got today. They used to at the New State. They used to have vaudeville right on the stage.
Today they don't have
They
anything.
don't have
good.
nothing. That the New State is gone. They tore that down, and that
Mm-hmm.
was on 7th Street, going towards the East 7th. And then they had the Lyceum on Wabasha and the Strand on Wabasha.
Mhm.
And what else did they have?
Two more. Wait, the one's right downtown there. I forgot their name. The Paramount was one.
An Orpheum.
Yeah,
Paramount North. Remember
Orphan
the
there,
Paramount
yeah.
Northland?
One on
Yeah,
each
they
side.
had
Those
that.
were nice movies.
Yes, and then right over there next to it was a steakhouse, and then there was the that ice cream place.
Bridgman's.
Bridgman's. They
I liked
it
them.
was nice there. Everything is gone.
Mm-hmm.
You know.
We had all the stores too. Emporium, Golden Rule,
Yeah,
Bannon's.
nice. Yeah.
Yeah.
Strand. And
Yeah, we could just go
McCullen
from
store.
one to the other. If we didn't find what we wanted, we would find it here
Yeah,
or there.
and cheap too.
Right next to each other. All.
You'd get a pair of stockings for 75 cents. You remember that $2 for shoes? Yeah, I mean stuff was cheap.
Yeah.
And then they had the in the corner there on Wabasha was that photo place. That's where I took my wedding pictures there.
Oh,
It was
I
on
forget the
7th and
name, but I
Wabasha.
know what it
And then
was.
there was the Goodman's Jeweler there.
Oh
and-
yeah, nice store.
Yeah, and then there
Jewelry
was
store.
what was that? It was a restaurant there. Was it a Chinese? Oh, the Lantern. I went and worked in there one time.
Yeah.
In the Lantern, it was right on 7th and Wabasha there, and right where Dayton's is now. And I went to work there. After I got through working on one job, I went to another, and I worked there part time in the evenings.
Yeah.
And it was kind of a high class place. They had pretty colored lanterns on each.
They had a lot of nice lights.
Yeah, and it would open up to about four to about 11 or something like that. But I worked about 2 or 3 hours because I had worked in another place. So I went in there and I was eating their food. So one day I went to work and they said, "Oh, we're closed." And I says, "Closed for what?" They found cats in the doggone food and they locked the place up. And I was eating their food, so I got some
Cat food.
cat in me. They,
Ah.
yeah, they were. It was an Oriental restaurant, and they said
Oh
that
yeah,
they
they
had.
use that, I suppose.
And so I went to the what's that one Port Arthur on Robert Street.
Yeah.
So I went there, and then from there that other one, and so you had to give the people their order, and then you have to, when after you take the order from the cook, then you go along, and the cashier was there, and the owner was there, and then he gives you a ticket to give to the people, so they have to pay this ticket, and then we
whatever.
pay the cashier. So one time I had the soup, and there was a bug in it, so I had to go to him, to give me a slip on it, and I says, "Got a bug in it." He says, "Take it out and give it to the customer." Took the bug out, and I
Oh no.
serve it to the customer, and I go, "Oh my God, I'll never eat in this place again."
Well, they didn't know the bug was in there, and they took it out, didn't they?
I took it out.
Yeah, I know.
He said, "Take it out," he said.
Well, yeah,
He
that's
said,
the
"Don't-"
thing to do.
Well, that's what they did. I took it out. But he served it. Why did he leave it in there? He's the one that served it and put it in the cup.
yeah,
He should have watched to see that there was a bug in there.
Yeah.
But he did.
Exactly.
But you don't know what the hell you're eating. And then there was the bowl. Remember the bowl? BOWL?
Yeah.
It was right on that side where right on the side where across from that jewelry store, Goodman's jewelry store.
Yeah, Goodman's.
There was a bowl, and they ate in there. It was real big, and that was in the time of the war, when the Second World War was ending. And you went in there and ate, and they had it was packed, and there was all this food, like like a smorgasbord.
Mm-hmm.
So one time this girl that was with me ordered something, and here she found a cockroach right in the food. Oh, she says, oh my God. She says, I'm getting out of here. She said, I'm not going to eat in here again. Well, you don't know. Those buildings were old, but see, now they have them torn down, and then they build beans
You
there.
should see my dad when he had something in his soup or something. Just take it out and throw it out and keep on eating. He didn't care.
Oh my
He didn't
God.
care.
Oh, that's me. I would have thrown the whole thing away.
No, he wasn't fussy like that. We comes from a real poor country in Canada.
Yeah.
They didn't have much to eat.
You came from
Oh.
Canada?
Yeah.
Cool.
Years ago, his mother, I never knew his mother or dad because they always lived out there. When he got to be 21, he came to America.
Yeah.
And my mother's relatives were his cousins, and that's how he got to come to our country. And but the main head ones, my great grandparents, I don't know.
I bet they
because
never spoke English either. They didn't speak English, I imagine.
my dad did, but not them
Not
much.
the
I
rest of
don't
them.
think so. No.
Well, they were Canadian French.
But they were very poor.
Yeah.
They had cows that were so skinny they had to help them get up.
Oh.
They didn't have much
no
food to feed them. They
food.
each had a couple cows or something.
Oh my God,
Yeah.
that is poor.
Yeah, they were poor.
Yeah.
My mother would get kind of mad at them for being like that. Well, he can't help. It wasn't his fault.
No.
They kept their cows so poor. Well, they didn't have any better food. They didn't have alfalfa like we got. They just had
Yeah.
plain hay, maybe no oats to give them, and not
Yeah.
much.
Oh,
See,
poor
in
animals
our
suffered.
place, my
Yeah.
dad had a nice big barn, and he had drinking cups for the cattle. All they had to do was press in that cup with their mouth, and the water would come out during the
Oh,
winter
that
while
was
they were in
nice.
drinking cups.
Yeah, it didn't freeze up or anything on
No,
it.
no, they had their water, and then he'd feed them a couple times a day, hay and alfalfa and stuff, and then he let them out to walking around, and then
Yeah.
they'd come back in the barn and they'd clean the barn. And they
Yeah.
were well taken care of.
Oh,
The
that
animals.
was nice.
And when they had calves, we'd raise them for 2-3 weeks till they fatten up. Then the cattleman would come with his truck and he'd buy the cattle and bring them to the calves to South St. Paul and sell them, and then he'd bring us back the chick.
Oh,
He'd pay
yeah.
us so much, yeah.
Sure. Oh, that was
Yeah,
nice.
cattle haulers.
You know, before you leave, you're going to have to help me carry all that stuff.
Yeah, why don't we do that, Grandma?
Yeah.
I don't think anybody would come in.
No,
Come
I
No,
think
with you.
I think we should carry it in because I think we gotta go pretty soon because Anna's
It
getting
was raining too much.
gotta talk to Carl.
I think
Well,
it was raining too
Grandma,
much.
What?
it was fun getting to know you a little bit better, and you
Get to
too,
know my history of
Agnes.
my
Yeah.
life.
It's fun
Now
to
you
get to
know
know
the
you.
history of your life. You know.
Yeah, see
I
that.
have the history of mine. Now you got it.
But before we go, do you think we could just get a quick tour of where you raised some of your children here in your house?
In my house.
Yeah, this is the kitchen, but just kind of.
Oh, you mean you're gonna take a picture of this house?
Yeah,
The stumpy place?
yeah. Well, this is where my dad spent half of his childhood.
Life? Oh,
Yeah, well, that's interesting to know.
Yeah, well, I would just hold on. I want to have maybe a little something to eat or nip on or something. You want something, Agnes? I do.
Were you going to eat
Something?
out or here?
No, here, we'll finish up. You can have some of my pizza.
I had a piece of pizza and I had 2 pieces of bread. I'm
Aren't you
full.
hungry? 2 of them. This thing is curling up.
It's nice.
Does it look nice?
It does. It looks really did a nice job.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, he's good at printing.
Right, Grandma?